Okay, this is just kind of a rundown of our payload. This is the actual payload that we have, or that we use. And just open this up. Now, since we don't have all of this, I think a lot of it got lost on the ride home and cleaning up and everything, but this is most of it. At least all of it. Mostly. So this was the outer container. It had my phone number on it, Matthew's phone number on it, and my brother's phone number on it, along with our address. So if anybody found it before we did, they at least knew where it went. And hopefully they didn't just steal it from us because it had a bunch of goodies in it. But this would have had a lid on it, and this lid was taped around the edge. And then it was taped across and all the way around. And then it was taped this way all the way around. And then it went from all the corners all the way around. And we just kind of threw in a couple more strips for safety. We did not want this thing coming apart. You had that lid, and then you had this. This was the actual payload itself. This would, a lot of it falling apart from the moisture on the tape from whenever it landed, but this was the actual payload itself. This contained everything, just an ice cream bucket with some styrofoam around it to stabilize it inside of the cooler. Shout out to my dad for doing that. What's inside here? This would have had a lid on it that was then taped shut just for some security too. But this is a close replication of it. Our phone, which was also our GPS, was taped to the side right there. We had a battery pack here. There were actually two of these, and they filled up this entire wall, but those have disappeared somehow. And then we had hot hands, hand warmers all around here. We had 9 of these things. There's only 7 in there right now because a couple got lost and thrown away on the ride home as we were throwing it apart, trying to get into the inside on the way home. And then your camera was taped right here. And we had cut a hole so the button wasn't pushed and it didn't turn off and the camera could see through there. And also on the payload, we cut a hole right here for the camera to see out. If you take this apart, this is all just simple packaging tape in there. There's a lot of it. So our phone was just plugged into the battery pack. And the way the battery pack works, I'm just going to unplug the phone. The way the battery packs worked, these were fairly simple. These are just some super cheap little mini portable chargers. They came in singles. I realized one of these wasn't going to be good enough because one of these is complete crap. I figured I could probably... The phone had some good battery life on it, so I wasn't too worried about it. The only point in these were just safety, made us feel better about it in case it had to lay on the ground for 6 hours or something. But one was not going to be enough. So I took a couple, 3 is what I finally decided. I taped them all together just to keep them nice and still. And I fully charged one. And I'll take that one fully charged one. And it has to be plugged in a simple order just for organization. It doesn't have to be, but I prefer it. The way they're lined up is USB charger. Just keep things semi-organized in the craziness. So you'd plug in those. So now this fully charged one is charging this middle one. And then you would connect the middle one and plug it in to the last one. So now this fully charged battery is keeping this fully charged battery full, which is keeping this fully charged battery full, and then you would plug in the phone. So this battery is charging this battery, which is charging this battery, which is charging the phone. Now what this did is it basically triples your battery life. Because what happens is, this battery, this first one right here, goes dead. So you've used up one battery. Then this middle full battery is going to charge this first battery. So now you have the battery life of 2. And once this middle one runs dead, this first one, which is full, begins to charge the middle one, which begins to charge the last one. And it basically creates triple the battery life. And the camera had 4 on it because the camera had some pretty crappy battery life because it's a cheap knockoff. The camera, unfortunately, the camera is not in here because Matthew has it. But it's just a simple crappy GoPro knockoff. I'll put the link in the description. But we realized after we had cut the holes in the Payload to fit this case that we couldn't charge it. And if we didn't put it inside of this case, then it would not fit properly into the Payload, and that would throw us all off. So what we did was we drilled a hole. As you can see, let me get that charger back. You can just stick it in there, and you can charge your camera while it's sat in there. And just take all these hot hands out. Those are the 7. In here, you had a hole for the camera, which fit rather nicely. This hole here in the bottom, the whole purpose of this bottom hole is because there's a little mounting bracket right there, and so it would fit oddly in the Payload and wouldn't be very stable. So we sliced a hole in the bottom for that mounting bracket to go through, and now it is flush with the bottom of the ice cream container. We also had to drill a hole right here in the side. Has a little flip on it, but that hole right there was so that as it was charging like this, see, it sticks out a lot, and if you put the case in here, it's mostly flush with the side. So we cut that hole so you can stick this little piece of cable that was sticking out into there, and it was all able to fit nice and flush and everything. And it worked out very nicely. That's mostly the Payload. Now on to the balloon and parachute. This is our balloon, and there's some more of it. What we did was, in the bottom of the Payload, or in the bottom of this cooler, what happened was, everybody knows styrofoam is not very strong. Let's take this tiny piece, for example. Almost no force at all. And putting the weight of this, which was 3 pounds, almost 4, onto these 4 tiny little spots. Well, that puts a lot of stress on those 4 tiny little points of styrofoam. So, to fix that, I'll take these out. We stuck a sheet of metal in the bottom. Now what this does is, instead of all of the weight being on each individual point, it pulls on the metal in each corner and disperses it throughout the entire bottom of it. It makes it a lot stronger, because instead of putting this much weight in one spot, you put this much weight in all the spots, and it really increases the integrity of the styrofoam cooler. And that was a huge biggie, because nobody wants the Payload container to be weak. Put this back in. And huge thanks to my dad to cutting all the styrofoam again. Couldn't have done it without him. Now that we have this paracord here, we had to connect it to the parachute somehow. And all we did there was we basically just knotted it a bunch. It has a bunch of knots. There's also a zip tie on here. It's all covered up through balloon and stuff, but and it emerges. So we just tie that on there. So here is our parachute. The link for this is also in the description. But this is the parachute. It's just an easy, very simple 3-foot parachute used for model rocketry, but it works great for anything that needs a parachute. You need a way. No, so you have this parachute connected to your payload, but you need to put the balloon on it somehow. And we were thinking nothing, basically. So we did some Google searches on it. And what we found on Google was you just put a fishing line around this. But that's for X-cut parachutes, so it has lines in them. But we were thinking it would work. So you put a parachute. No, we'll use the zip tie as our fishing line. You put your fishing line around it. You know what? Ooh, this is a reusable zip tie. These are very handy in weather ballooning. So you would put your fishing line around your parachute, and this is where the balloon is connected. We'll say this part is the balloon. Your balloon pulls up, and because of the weight, it keeps this parachute closed. So if we hold the strings at the bottom, which will act as the payload, and then we pull on the zip tie, it keeps it closed, so it's not creating any drag. And once you let go of this, it would be able to open up. After running a few tests, it didn't work the way we wanted it to. And my genius dad came up with the washer idea. I can't say he came up with it. He did Googling on his own, but he still told us about it. So you put a washer on it, and you connect the balloon to the washer. So the payload is pulling on these white strings down, and that pulls the parachute up into the washer. And we just luckily found the right size washer where it can easily slide on the strings, but the parachute will not come through it. And now your balloon is connected to the washer. So as your payload pulls down and the balloon pulls up, the parachute stays out of the way. Now, once the balloon pops, the weight of the washer and the balloon falling, while the balloon is still mostly going, the payload will still be going up because gravity hasn't hit it yet. The washer is allowed to fall down to the bottom because of the weight of the balloon, and the parachute opens up like so. And that was genius. And the way we connected all of the washer to the balloon, or the paracord to the washer, was you tied a nice strong knot and put a bunch of zip ties on it. Zip ties are amazing, let me tell you that. Now the way we connected the string to the balloon, or the paracord at least, this was super easy. Take a zip tie. Actually, for filling it, let's say you're going to make this as our balloon nozzle, which is right here. This is our balloon nozzle. So you have it on your helium enclosure. Actually, is it open? So you have it on your helium tank. You have it on the opening of your helium tank. And you don't want it to come off, so you take a reusable zip tie. It has to be reusable. And you slip it on. And now it is stuck there, and you might want to use like 3 or 4 of these. That's what we did. But so once you do that, the way we did it is we didn't really have a way to measure how much it was lifting. So I filled up a milk jug with 3 pounds worth of water, because that's how much how much positive lift we needed. So I took that and I tied I did a very sloppy tie, but enough to hold it, onto the payload and tied it to the water jug. So every time we took the balloon off to test if it could carry the payload and the water balloon, you would take off, we would take off the reusable zip tie while holding the balloon to make sure it doesn't float off. We were very sure about that. So while still holding it, you put a zip tie above the tank, like right above it, and you tighten up your zip tie. So now it is zip tied closed. You do that about 3 times, and that just ensures that your balloon is sealed and nothing's leaking out while you test it. And you can test it, and then if it's not enough, you put it back on there and take off the reusable zip ties, or at least move them down, and now it's refilling. Once you did that, your balloon can carry enough. You take the nozzle, now that you know that it can carry enough, and you take actual zip ties, not reusable ones, actual zip ties, and you seal it shut right above the hose. Sealed shut. And we did that 3 times. All in separate places, because safety, 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 right? Better safe than sorry. You want to do this low on the neck. Now that you've done that, we would have cut these off. So you've cut off all these extra pieces. You know, I can go ahead and show y'all with these handy dandy scissors I have. So your balloon is closed. Now what you do is you take your paracord and you lay it above the zip ties while someone is holding the balloon. And you fold the neck up. Now, this string cannot pull through. And then what you do is you take some more zip ties and you zip tie it up. Zip tie the nozzle up. And we did that 3 more times. We had a total of 6 zip ties because we were not taking any chances. So it's nice and zip tied up. It's closed and everything. And then we had to cut off all these extras because those had the potential of popping the balloon if it ran into them, and they were just plain annoying. But now you have it connected to the washer if your plastic isn't weak. It was perfectly fine on the latex because the latex is super strong. The plastic isn't, but so now it's connected on there. But now you have all these pokey zip ties. Like that one is super pokey. I could probably make myself bleed with that. That's not good for the balloon. So you take some handy dandy electrical tape. It doesn't have to be electrical tape, but this was the thickest stuff we had. And this also just helps keep it shut. You stick it on the zip tie, or you stick it right above the zip tie, and you begin to tape it up. And this keeps the balloon from popping on the zip ties. This keeps the balloon from coming undone if the zip ties fail. It's just kind of like an extra security. So now you have your balloon nice and sealed up, which is exactly what we did here. As you can see, it was not coming out at all. Very sturdy, and what I recommend. That's how we did all of that. And just a bunch of stuff to keep handy while you're filling the balloon, or just a bunch of stuff we kept handy, is extra paracord, because we never know what was going to go wrong. Always keep extra string anything. We had a crap ton of hand warmers. This is why we put so many, because we had a lot. We didn't know how many we were going to need. A crap ton of zip ties, because, like I said, zip ties are amazing. A roll of electrical tape, because we needed that. And electrical tape is also amazing. and a roll of packing tape. Another thing we had to use was latex gloves. Latex gloves are super important when handling weather balloons made of latex. These are actually natural, but who cares about that? Because the oils of your skin will help weaken the latex, basically eats it away, and you have a balloon that pops premature. It also helps keep your fingernails from putting a nick in it and it popping 10,000 feet early, because that is the last thing you want. That's just kind of how we went about the payload. We also kept scissors; those are important. That's how we went about the payload, stuff that was in the payload, how we connected it and everything. It worked very well. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. Just comment down below, send me a message, email me something, anything. I would gladly help y'all out.